Hello and welcome, this is Melskinner, and we're back with some more of the Warlock of Firetop Mountain. It has been a little while since I've covered this on my channel, but it was one of my favorite games of 2016, and there is a new DLC that just recently launched, so I will be covering it again. I have so far put a couple hours into the game with the new DLC, predominantly during a stream, so I have a little bit of experience with it, but we'll go ahead and hop right in here, start a new game, and we'll talk about what the new DLC has added in. And my experience specifically is with the new challenge mode that has been added in, and that's what we're predominantly going to look at in this initial look at the game. This is actually going to be a series that I am going to do, as the game does usually take roughly 2 to 3 hours to get through if you go from beginning to end. It depends on the speed that you play in particular, but I say it's pretty realistic that you could get through a playthrough in a couple hours. This is based upon the fighting fantasy choose your own adventure / role-playing games from the 1980s. If you're not that familiar with the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, the Warlock of Firetop Mountain was one of the books in that series that this is based upon. Now, I say based upon, this game isn't following directly or exactly the way that those Choose Your Own Adventure books work. It does expand upon the mechanics a little bit. But let's go ahead and move on here. So this is the standard introduction where you meet Oriana. If this is the first time you've played, this will be a little bit different, but I played this before, so it says welcome back player. And again, if it's the first time you played, you're going to get a little bit more of an introduction if you say, who are you? But for now, we're just going to begin our journey, and we're going to select our hero. There's also going to be a tutorial that will pop up if I was doing a normal playthrough with a normal hero, but we'll be skipping over that. Now, if this is the first time you've ever played this game, you'll be starting with the Alancian hero group, and these are the heroes that you'll be using. And just to show the case of this character really quickly so you can see the difference with the challenge characters we'll be taking a look at later. You have 3 basic stats: stamina, skill, luck. Stamina is your health. Skill is a check, more or less, that you have for different events, but it also plays a part in combat. And we'll go over, once we get into the combat system, exactly how that works, but usually speaking, the higher the skill level, the better you are at certain instances of combat and certain skill checks. Luck works very similarly. There's certain checks that require it. The one unique thing with luck, though, is checks will actually reduce your luck. So the first check you'll have, you're at 10. The next check you'll have, you'll be reduced to 9. Whether you pass that check or not, you always will reduce the luck by 1. When I talk about a check, what I mean by that is there will be 2 6-sided dice rolled, and to pass the test, you'll have to roll the number of your ability or lower. So for the skill level of 9, we need to roll a 9 or lower on 2 dice, and the maximum we could roll is 12. So obviously our luck is a little bit higher, so it means that we would have a greater chance of passing luck tests with this character. Another element of characters that you'll oftentimes see is attributes. These are going to be special things that affect a number of things. For example, Dexterous here will allow you to pass certain, I think it's skill tests. Again, it's been a little while since I've played, so I don't remember exactly what everything in the game does. I'm a little bit rusty, but this is going to help you pass some tests. And it also impacts some of the choices that you make. Keen Eye is going to have a similar effect. And that's more or less how the attributes work. And then finally, we have an attack tab. Every character is going to have their own unique set of attacks. Usually speaking, it's going to be 4, although there might be deviations depending on the character. But this is going to dictate during the combat, which is turn-based, how your character attacks. So usually speaking, characters will have 2 basic attacks, and then they'll have 2 special attacks. So this character, the first 2 attacks would be basic attacks, which you could do every turn, and then the last 2 attacks are going to be special attacks that have a cooldown, so you have to wait to use them again. Again, there might be exceptions to that rule, but that's usually the general rule of the attacks. Alright, so that's usually how a character works. And there's a number of groups that you have to choose from, and as part of the base game. So we had the first group, we have a second group here. Now, if the character's colored in, that means you've already unlocked them. You use souls, which you get by playing the game. We'll see how that is accumulated once we get into the game. Although the challenge that we're going to do is going to impact a little bit. if you get through the entire game and you beat it in the best way that you can, because there's more or less different ways of beating it, to say, you know, simply, you can get varying rewards that are really going to boost this up, which is why I have so many souls, just to go over how much it would cost to unlock some characters. And the further you get into the groups, the more the cost is going to go up. But this character here would cost me 150 souls to unlock, which would be fairly simple with how many souls that I have. And there is 4 groups that launched with the main game. This is the last of those. And then finally, we have the DLC group, the Goblin Scourge group, which we have this nice box in the background to remind us of how we got these characters. And it appears that they're already unlocked. They're all colored in. I didn't do anything to make that happen. And I'm not really going to go over these characters in detail because there's another element of this DLC that we're going to be taking a look at for this game, and that is the challenge mode that I've already mentioned a few times. Now, as far as I can tell, these characters don't really have anything necessarily special about them in the attributes category. These are all attributes we've seen before with other characters. Their stats are going to work pretty much the same way as we've seen before. Their attacks are probably more than likely going to be unique for them, so this should be pretty new. But the real thing that I think that this game brings, and I haven't really experienced this myself, so this is me stating what I've seen as far as reading it, is that each of these characters, just like every other character in the game, is going to have their own unique quest and backstory, and there may, and I'm saying may, be new parts of the dungeon. It does seem from what I have played through so far that they have modified parts of the dungeon, tweaking them a little bit. More or less, it seems like the playthrough is the same that I've seen before, although the challenge mode is a little bit differently. And when I talk about the challenge mode, well, we have yet another group here, and that is the Goblin Gauntlet challenge group. For this challenge, you are playing as one of the minion enemies that you would normally encounter in the dungeon instead of a traditional adventurer. I have already done one playthrough, as I mentioned with that stream, with the Orc Taskmaster. And this time around, I think I'm going to do the first minion here, the Giant Rat. So let's take a look at the Giant Rat, and this is the main reason why I was showing you the other adventurers first, so that you can get a comparison with how the challenge minions work. So all we have is stats. We don't have attributes. So we have stamina, which is again our health. If you remember from that character I showed before, this is a little bit lower than what you would normally see. And your first group of heroes, the lowest health hero in that group is 17. So this is definitely lower than that. We have skill, which is pretty high. That's pretty good for the rat. And then we have luck. And there's a very basic description for each of these minions. So giant rats are a menace to all those who would search for treasure in ancient ruins or tombs. They're just like normal rats, but larger, with sharp claws and teeth. And then we have the attacks. This is going to matter a lot for this playthrough because the challenge mode, the Goblin Gauntlet, is very much combat oriented. Unlike the normal adventure mode where you're going in, you're doing a quest, and you're going to have a lot more depth of story and choice, this, you eliminate, with at least the challenge mode, you eliminate all the choices, really, and you remove a lot of the story background, and it's very much more combat-oriented. But it's meant to be a challenge. It's meant to really rack up souls is one way of doing this. You get double souls for kills that you get throughout the course of play. You are incentivized to get more kills. You're also incentivized to explore, and we'll see how that works as we get into the game. But we're going to need to focus on these attacks because of how combat oriented it is. So we have 4 attacks, just like we've seen. Actually, no, I apologize. We only have 3 attacks, so we are a little bit of an exception. So we have retreat. This is going to be, I think, our more basic attack. So we're going to do 2 damage in front of us, and we're going to back away 1 space, which is why there's a arrow towards the rear. We have dodge, which is going to attack 2 spaces, and we're going to move one of 2 possible ways sideways. This is going to be hard, I think, to utilize just because of its more unpredictable fashion, because I don't know exactly which way I'm going to move. We'll have to see as we get into it. Maybe we'll get a little bit more experience. And then we have rush. We're going to do 2 damage in these 2 squares, and then we'll move forward. All right. At least that's how I assume it works. It could be move forward, then attack. We'll see. Okay, so that's that character. And just to go over really quickly some of the other characters, so we have Rosnik, which is a zombie. Very interesting mechanic with this character because you have 80 stamina, extremely high. This is insane. Skill level very low, so in the cases of combat, you're going to be a little bit at a disadvantage with the clashes. And again, we'll see how the combat works as we get into the game. And we have pretty generic luck. I don't think luck really matters because from what I've seen, all of the skill tests have been taken out of the game. And then you have your attacks. Again, very interesting here. So we do 3 damage in 2 different squares. That's pretty good damage, but we have noticed that the character model is colored in red. Well, if we read the description, lurches forward aggressively, dealing damage to the target and the attacker. So this is one of the big elements of this zombie character is several of the attacks that it does, well, 2 of the 3 attacks that it does, do damage to your own character when you do them. I'm going to assume it's the amount of damage that you would be dealing. It doesn't actually say, so this is one of those things that I'd have to experience myself to know for sure. But we only have 1 of the 3 attacks possible that is not going to do damage to our own character. And it's possible this attack would be under a cooldown too, so we're not even sure if we could use it all the time. So yeah, you have a lot of health, but you're going to be frequently damaging yourself doing attacks. So pretty interesting dynamic. We have the Orc here, which has more standard health. And then you're going to be using this whip to do a lot of your damage, which gives you good range potential. As a matter of fact, this goes beyond the diagram here of normal attack damage. So a pretty untraditional attack. And 1 damage in 2 spaces here, 1 damage in 2 spaces out this way. The special, because I played this character, I can tell you for a fact, one of your special attacks, which has a cooldown, is the Scimitar, which also does knockback. It doesn't say that here, but the icon indicates this. That's one of the things you need to learn, although there is a little bit of a bug in the game right now, at least as far as I'm understanding, because there's supposed to be different color designations to show you certain special effects, and I think a lot of these are not colored correctly. The knockback ones are, but they're supposed to, I think, supposed to be a special color for stuns, as well as maybe one other one that I'm not remembering. And this particular attack puts out a stun, and I think it's supposed to be yellow if it's a stun. I would have to look at the other heroes that I know have stuns to confirm that. But in any case, this attack is a ranged attack that hits many areas, but it also stuns a target. And what stun does is it prevents them from being able to attack for a couple turns. So it's a pretty interesting character. It's a little bit tough because the attacks that you can do without cooldowns don't do that much damage. Your main damage attacks, the Scimitar and the Ninetail Flurry, do have cooldown, so challenging character to use. We have the Skeleton Warrior, which, again, lower health, pretty low skill, so clashes are going to be difficult. Your main attack, pretty heavy damage, and it also has this guarded ability, which means that it will block any incoming damage, so that's pretty good. And then you have 2 other abilities. One is going to be the Shield Bash, which is going to do 2 damage to one side. And we have another one called, and it said something about counterattacks. I'm not exactly sure what that means. Sometimes attacks have certain special effects, and we'd have to see from, again, experience with this character to see exactly what they mean by that. Then we have Sassy Retort, which not only does a huge amount of damage in several spaces, it also is going to stun. Again, not having the proper color to denote that. We have the Slime Beast, which has a lot of health, but again, low skill, so clashes would be difficult. You have a lot of ground covered with the Spread Slime, but not a lot of damage. You have the Sludge Tongue, which does more damage in close and reducing damage as it goes out, but pretty good range there. And then you have Knockback Strike, and we do have the proper indicator here that this does do knockback, but then you have standard 2 damage. That's pretty standard damage that will knock back your target. And then finally, we have a vampire, Wilhelm, who has very low health, pretty high skill though, and a lot of his attacks have leeching health effects. So you will do damage, but also heal the character. So your health is low, but you can bring back your health as you do damage. Only a couple of attacks do that though. You have Drink Blood here and Drink Blood here, so you have one over to a diagonal and one straight in front of you. The one straight in front of you does more damage, but this is not particularly great damage. You do have a couple special attacks though that do more damage. We have Trance Stare, which does 3 damage and immobilizes the target. Again, no special color here to denote that it has a special effect, and I'm not exactly sure how this works. Again, experience would tell that. And then we have Summon Bats, which does 2 damage all around the vampire, but again, no leech effect for that particular attack. All right, so we've gone over all of the minions. Let's go ahead and jump right in with the giant rat. Okay, hello player, welcome to the Goblin Gauntlet, a journey through the mountain controlling one of Zagor's mini minions. How far you get depends on your fighting prowess. You earn souls for each kill as normal, and have the ability to earn bonus souls depending on how many kills you accumulate at the end of the journey. More kills mean more souls. I may even appear from time to time to reward you with stamina and souls, so make sure to visit as many locations as possible. Your challenge starts. So more or less this now. This incentivizes you to explore. Now, we're missing all of the introduction stuff that normally would occur if you were doing a normal adventure. And as I was saying earlier, a lot of the choices are removed too. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend this as your first playthrough doing the Goblin's Gauntlet challenge. But once you've done maybe one playthrough, this is a great way to rack up souls so you can unlock other heroes, but it's also a great way to familiarize yourself with the combat system if that's something that you are struggling with, because this is very much focused on the combat system. All right, so you see dark, slimy walls with pools of water on the stone floor in front of you. Move into the blackness. I'm going to try not to spoil a lot of what would happen in this game, because one element of this, because it's based off of a choose your own adventure book, it's more or less going to read the same way every time. What gives you replayability is the fact that you have many heroes to choose from, each of which are going to have their own backstory, their own quest. The quests are a big element of things because it's going to direct you at a certain branch of the dungeon itself, and there are many branches to the dungeon. I've played this game through at least 5-6 times, and there are for sure parts of the dungeon that I have yet to discover. And there may even be new bits to the dungeon added in with this DLC. Again, I don't know that for sure, so it's hard to say. It's not something that they've said with the DLC, but in any case, you have Disturb and Orc Patrol. They unsheath their weapons. So again, I'm not going to get too much into spoilers here, but this is a spot where you would normally have a choice, but choices are removed with this challenge. So we're going to fight the orcs here that have arrived. Patrol of orcs, and orcs are fairly simple enemies. The problem that I have, though, is I have completely forgotten how my attacks work. I remember we have a retreat, we have a rush attack, and we have there's one other attack that we have that I cannot remember how it works. But how the combat works is we have the blue squares are squares that we can move into. The orange squares are ones that we can attack into. But if we click on any square, we're going to get the option of what we want to do. So we've got, this was the other one I forgot about. So this one's going to move to the side if we use it. So the one problem with our characters is that we don't really have much range. We do need to be in close to be able to do most of our damage. And movement is going to be key for this character as well. Now, if you see the little starburst like this means it's an ability that has a cooldown. So if we use this, we'll have a number of turns before we can use it again. If it just has the normal cross swords, that is a normal attack that you can do as much as you want. Okay, so if the enemies or the AI works in a very specific pattern, and they're going to do one of two things. Just like our character, they're either going to move or they're going to attack. We know whether they're going to attack or move by their behavior. So when the turn starts, if they do a little rocking motion, we know they've queued an attack. If they don't do a rocking motion, they've queued a move. Their facing is going to matter a lot for either the attack or the move. And a lot of it depends upon the behavior of the character in general, or the minion or the enemy in general. they are always going to stick to a set pattern. So by playing this game, you are eventually going to be able to learn those patterns and apply them in future playthroughs, because these enemies will always behave in the same fashion. Now, there may be variants of a particular enemy, so you might not be able to apply that logic to all orcs, for example. There might be some orcs that are going to behave a little bit differently. And there are going to be, as you get further into the game, more complex enemies. Early stages of the game when we're fighting orcs, these are going to be fairly simple enemies. But later on in the game, we're going to start encountering much more complex enemies that may not telegraph their attacks at all. If I remember correctly, the normal giant rat, the one that you encounter in the dungeon, doesn't telegraph whether it's attacking or not. You just have to guess. All right, with that being said, I think I'm going to go ahead and do the retreat attack because I want to see how this works. I want to see if the attack happens first. I'm fairly certain the character in front of me did a Q attack. I missed what this character did. It does require a lot of attention to see what all of the enemies are going to do, and sometimes you have 5, 6 plus characters or enemies on the screen that you all have to closely watch at the beginning of the turn to see exactly how they queued up. But I'm going to go ahead and do this retreat and hope that I back away from this attack. If not, I know this character's acute an attack, and they more than likely will hit me in the space, so we're going to have a clash. All right, so we did get that clash. This is how clashes work. You have a roll-off, and you apply your skill, the skill here, to that roll. So it's 2 dice plus your skill. So if we hover over the orcs, we see they have 5 skill. I have 10. So I have a +5 advantage over them. So that character even did roll better than me, but not better enough that they were able to overcome my advantage. Okay, so I think he's going to move straight forward, so I'm going to go ahead and do my side slash, hopefully hitting both of them. And we did guess correctly. Now this character is queued up in an attack, and I can be fairly certain he's going to attack me here. So I can just go ahead and sidestep that, and he's missed. He didn't rock, so that means he is going to move. So I'm just going to go ahead and attack where I think he's going to move. Boom. Now, normally we would move back as we attack, but we couldn't because we were in the corner. I am going to conclude, based off the fact that we had a clash there, that if we had lost the clash, we would have still taken the damage, even though we moved out of the square that the enemy was attacking into. So that is important for us to remember. There are some enemies that have attacks that will always land first, or they'll have initiative for their attack. So, for example, if you try to sidestep this character, they have that initiative so that they will do damage to you before you move out of the space. So that is one thing that we're going to have to keep in mind. So we've defeated the orcs. We're going to move on. Again, choices are removed here. The door bursts open, and you fall headlong into a room, plunging down the side of a pit of some kind. Thankfully, the pit is not particularly deep, and you land in a heap less than 2 meters down. Suddenly see a pair of evil-looking eyes appear from the darkness. A slime beast lurks within and has spotted you. 2 hideous slime zombies have also emerged from the goo. They shamble towards you with one sole purpose. The slime beast, meanwhile, launches itself at you with its powerful hind legs. So again, if you're familiar with this game, you will already be noticing the differences that are going on here. But if you have experience with the game, it does more or less play out the same way. That just are definite differences, and there are things, because a lot of the choices and the checks and all that stuff has been removed from the game. There's going to be a bit of skipping over some parts that you may be familiar with, and if you're not familiar with the game, this isn't too bad of a spoiler as well. Again, I don't recommend this be your first playthrough. I think for your first playthrough, you should play with a traditional character, get the story, get that in there. But if you may be struggling with the game, start doing these Goblin Gauntlet challenges and just try and get a little bit better, and don't worry too much that you're spoiling a lot of the game for yourself, because you're not going to have a lot of the story elements that you would normally. And you also get a nice soul reward that's going to help you unlocking more characters. Okay, so we see these 2 guys rocked. That guy I don't think rocked, so that means that he's going to move. Now, I could probably do the side slash, but then we would move here. I think we should just sidestep here, because both of those attacks would have hit us. This guy here, queued an attack. These guys queued moves. They may hit each other, though, and not actually move into the square, or one might override the other. Sometimes it's weird with the priority system in this game that you can have multiple outcomes like that. But I'm going to go ahead and do... Interesting. We don't have a normal diagonal attack, which is very different than what I'm used to encountering. So this is actually going to be tough to deal with. I'm going to have to move here. I don't have really much other choice. Okay, so these guys have queued attacks on me, and I'm going to assume that both of them can hit me. This guy's queued a move. I might get cornered in here already. So I'm going to go ahead and do the side slash because I don't feel like I have any other option. We're probably going to have a clash here. Oh no, we just got hit straight up. I think this guy rocked. I can't really tell what this guy did. I think he's going to move here. So I'm going to do a rush attack. All right. Well, no, I misread that then, I guess. Now they for sure rocked. I'm going to go ahead and do my retreat move. Okay, we're going to have a clash. We should have a big advantage here. So as long as you don't roll crummy. Okay, that guy queued an attack. Let's do our side slash. We'll hit both of these guys. I did take the damage, though, because I moved into it. Wow, this character is extremely difficult to play with. And that's one of the problems, or the challenges, I guess I should say, with the Goblin's Gauntlet challenge is that these characters do work in a... And again, I misread there. Okay, so for sure he's going to move this time. So we'll do the sidestep slash. And now I'm going to do the rush. This time I've done a little bit better job of seeing where the opponent was going to be. So I did really badly there for a first fight, but this character is kind of taking me a little while to get used to. We get our 6 souls, we lost 6 stamina, which is bad considering how low our health is to begin with. I've almost halved my health, but we've defeated the monsters. You've reached a dead end, but no matter, I want to reward you for your tenacity. And this is where the exploration comes in, so we get 3 additional souls for exploring. And let's go ahead and leave the room. So we're going to backtrack because that was a dead end, and we're going to come right back into the next encounter. A little way along the passageway, you venture upon a sleeping orc. It suddenly wakes with a start, grabbing its orcish weapon. Another orc runs down the corridor and joins in the battle. We have to fight a couple orcs. We've already fought these orcs, so we kind of have an idea of how their mechanic works. Orcs are one of the easier opponents in this game. Okay, move there. And that's an example where they both tried to move in the same space, but were unable to. Now, I do not want to do... Well, I could either do... Yeah, let's do the rush. So we're going to move there. Do damage. I'm just going to back off. Well, part of the thing with this character, though, is you're actually incentivized to do clashes because your skill roll is so high that you're very likely to win them. Like that. Let's do this attack. As we will kill that guy. And we could just do a clash here. But we're going to be clashing a lot, though, with this character, just with the way that they move. Again, we didn't get that great of a roll, but we had such an advantage. It really worked in our favor. So another four souls in the kitty. The 2 orc hounds begin to snarl and strain at their chains. They cannot reach you, but their chains are long enough that should you approach, you will not be able to escape their slavering. Okay, let's go ahead and... Ooh. There we go. We're going to have to fight the orc hounds. Okay, that was a queued move for sure. So we're going to queue the rush. Okay, queued attack. I think this was a queued attack too, so I think we're better off with the side slash here. We're good at clash, but our skill is so high that I have confidence, especially if we get a max roll, that we'll win. Queued move, so we're going to do our rush attack. Do some damage. And then we'll get in our clash here. Another good roll. And we win. 4 souls. To your left, on the west face of the passage, there is a rough cut wooden door. You have reached a resting bench. And we get 5 stamina. Remove from us is the choice to rest like you normally have in the adventure, but you're always going to get the stamina. So if you do know where the resting benches are, you can use those to heal yourself up. But there are also certain things that happen where Oriana is just going to give you stamina for either completing a specific challenge or what have you. So I think I'm going to go ahead and wrap up the video here, and I'll be picking this up in the next video, and I'll continue to make this a series. We'll go through this particular gauntlet challenge. I'll also take a look at the new heroes in future videos as well. I definitely plan to do at least a couple runs of this game on my channel. But in any case, I hope you guys have enjoyed. This is Meltsgunner signing out.